in Goblin Reddit. Today's story is
My daughter rebelled, got tattoos and threatened me at 16. The truth about her mother changed everything. My daughter Luna and Nancy, her absent mother, tried to destroy my reputation and present me as a terrible father to my whole family. It all started when Nancy and I met at a college party when we were both students. She was a year older than me, and what started out as a simple encounter that night turned into a casual affair. At the time neither of us thought anything of it, but that single encounter resulted in Nancy becoming unexpectedly pregnant. When she found out she was pregnant, Nancy wasn't sure she wanted to have the baby. I told her I would support her whatever decision she made, as it was her body and her choice. However, her parents, who were very religious, pressured her not to terminate the pregnancy. After much thought, Nancy chose to continue with the pregnancy, but made it very clear to everyone that she had no intention of raising a child. Her plan was to find an adoptive family once the baby was born. When I heard that plan, something inside me stirred. I couldn't bear the idea of my child being handed over to strangers and growing up without knowing me. I talked to my parents about the situation and they were incredibly understanding. Together, we drew up a proposal. I approached Nancy again and presented her with an alternative. After the birth, she could give me full custody. I assured her that she would never have to take on any responsibility and that I would take full care of the baby. Nancy accepted the proposal and that was exactly how it all happened. The birth of my daughter Luna was a moment that completely transformed my existence. When I first held her in my arms, I was overcome by a wave of love so intense that it left me speechless. Luna was so small and perfect that I knew instantly that my life had changed forever. My father had told me that becoming a father was one of the most challenging but meaningful journeys a person could experience. He assured me that everything would make sense when I held my daughter in my arms, and he was not wrong. Holding Luna gave me a purpose in life that I had never felt before. It made me feel capable of facing any obstacle for her. After Luna's birth, Nancy proceeded to sign the documents granting me full custody, despite strong opposition from her parents. She stood firm in her decision and, once the legal process was over, she resumed her university life as if nothing had happened. She concentrated on her studies and her social life, leaving me with all the responsibility of raising Luna, just as I had wanted. I have to be honest, being a single father was not easy. At the time, I was still at university trying to balance my classes, work and taking care of Luna. Without the support of my parents, I would not have been able to do it. They were a fundamental pillar, helping me every step of the way. The three of us made sure that Luna was surrounded by love and constant attention. While I attended my classes, my mother took care of Luna. When I returned, I spent every available minute with her before going to work. During my working hours, my parents took care of her again. Even with their help, I felt a great responsibility to support Luna on my own. I didn't want to depend on my parents financially to cover her expenses, so I worked as many hours as possible during college to be able to contribute money. Balancing everything was exhausting and there were days when I could hardly stand up, but Luna was my absolute priority. The love I felt for her made every sacrifice worthwhile. Meanwhile, Nancy, who was a year older, graduated before me and immediately moved to another city with her boyfriend at the time. She never showed any interest in Luna or asked about her, and honestly, I was fine with that. By then, I had accepted that Nancy was not part of Luna's life. I considered myself to be her only parent and my only concern was to give my daughter the best life possible. When I finally graduated and got a full-time job as an analyst, I was finally able to move Luna and me into our own apartment. It was a moment that filled me with pride. Being able to support myself and give my daughter a home. My parents adored Luna and would have gladly continued to help, but I felt they deserved a rest after all they had done for us. Raising Luna alone brought its own challenges. There were sleepless nights, endless chores and the constant juggling of work and parenthood, but over time I established routines that worked for us. It wasn't perfect, and there were difficult days, but I learned to manage. With practice and a lot of love, I made it all work. At every moment, Luna was my motivation to keep going and seeing her smile made all the difficulties worthwhile. As Luna grew up, she naturally began to ask questions about her mother. I decided to always be honest with her. I explained that her mother had chosen a different path, one that didn't include raising children, but I assured her that we were fine because we had each other. I didn't want to lie or make up stories that might create false expectations. I thought it was better that she knew the truth, even if it was hard to hear. For years, this strategy seemed to work well. By the time Luna turned 15, our life had found a happy and stable rhythm. She was doing very well in school, she had a solid group of close friends, and we had built a life together that felt complete. Our little family worked and we were happy. Everything changed when Luna turned 16. Suddenly, Nancy, who had been completely absent since she gave up custody, contacted me on Facebook. She told me that she had been thinking a lot about Luna and wanted to meet her. Her message caught me off guard. The idea that Nancy wanted to re-enter our lives made me deeply uneasy. It wasn't just that she had given up her rights as a mother years ago, there were deeper concerns about who Nancy was as a person. Even at university, she had always been problematic, surrounding herself with difficult people and making dubious decisions. I knew for sure that she had a history of drug use with her various partners, and I couldn't imagine that someone like that would be a good influence on Luna. More importantly, we didn't need Nancy in our lives. Luna and I had built something solid and stable together. Nancy's sudden interest felt more like an invasion than an opportunity. I replied to her message firmly but politely. I told her that Luna was doing very well without her and that if she wanted to meet her, she would have to wait until she turned 18. At that point, I explained, it would be Luna's decision whether or not she wanted to meet her birth mother. Nancy read my message but did not reply. For a while, I thought she had understood and hoped that would be the end of it. I wanted to protect Luna from any unnecessary disruption, especially as we had worked so hard to create a happy and stable life together. However, I later discovered that Nancy had been communicating with Luna behind my back. Apparently, Nancy manipulated the situation by telling Luna that I didn't want her to meet her biological mother and that it was my fault that Luna didn't have a mother in her life. Unfortunately, Luna didn't tell me about these conversations at the time, and Nancy's influence began to be noticed in her attitude towards me. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a drastic change in Luna's behavior. She began to be distant, impolite and especially irritable with me. This was totally different from her usual way of being. Luna had always been sweet, kind and considerate. At first, I attributed it to the mood swings typical of adolescence. But as time went by, I realized it was something more serious. Luna seemed to be completely distancing herself, avoiding spending time with me and even dodging any conversation. It hurt me to see my daughter distance herself in this way, especially as we had always been so close. Then something particularly worrying happened. One afternoon, Luna didn't come home at her usual time after school. I waited for almost 2 hours, increasingly anxious. Normally, if Luna stayed late at a friend's house or had an activity after class, she would always send me a message to let me know. It was a habit we had developed over the years so that I wouldn't worry unnecessarily about her whereabouts. But this time, there was no message or any kind of notification. Concerned, I sent her several messages asking if she was okay. I hoped she had simply forgotten to reply, but deep down, I felt that something was not right. Luna finally arrived home that night, much later than usual. As soon as I saw her, I knew something was wrong. She looked visibly affected. Her shoulders were slumped, her face full of sadness. I asked her if everything was all right, worried. That's when she suddenly broke down in tears. Between sobs, she told me that she had met her biological mother and had found out what she had supposedly been hiding from her for years. I was stunned and asked her what she meant. That was when Luna revealed that Nancy had contacted her on Facebook a few weeks ago. She confessed that they had been talking since then, and that Nancy had been saying things about me that made her doubt everything. Luna admitted that these conversations were disturbing her and making her see me in a different light. My daughter explained that Nancy had even convinced her to keep these communications a secret, which was why she hadn't told me anything. That afternoon, they had finally met in person, and Nancy had filled her head with more disturbing accusations. According to Luna, Nancy told her that I had forced her to give up custody, presenting me as the villain who had intentionally kept her away from her biological mother. Nancy also told her that it was entirely my fault that Luna did not have a mother in her life and that it had been selfish of me to raise her without Nancy's involvement. Hearing this broke my heart. I could see how confused Luna was. Torn between what she had always believed and the lies Nancy was now telling her. As much as I wanted to react angrily, I knew I needed to stay calm. I took a deep breath and explained to Luna once again that Nancy was not telling her the truth. I reminded her of everything I had told her before. The real reasons why Nancy had chosen not to get involved in the decisions we had made to ensure that Luna had a stable and loving home. I assured her that my parents, who loved her like a daughter, would never lie to her about something so important. I emphasized that if Nancy had really wanted to be part of her life, we would have accepted her. But Nancy had made her decision all those years ago. I hoped that by staying calm and repeating the truth, Luna would begin to see the lies that Nancy was telling her, but I realized that the damage was already done. Luna refused to listen to anything I had to say and yelled at me for keeping her away from her mother. That night, I was so angry at Nancy's interference that I took her phone, found her number and called her directly. I demanded that she explain to me why she was manipulating my daughter and filling her head with such obvious lies. Instead of retracting, Nancy insisted on her accusations. She told me that she was too young at university to really understand what was going on when she gave up custody, but that now that she was older and more mature, she had every right to be part of Luna's life. She made it clear that she could no longer keep her daughter away from her. As a result, despite my protests and attempts to set limits, Nancy continued to meet Luna regularly. This made me feel very uncomfortable, but I felt powerless to stop it. I tried my best to help Luna see the truth, but she seemed determined to believe her mother over me. Over time, Nancy began to act as if she had every right to be Luna's mother. She wanted to know more and more about her life and was getting more and more involved in her world. As the weeks went by, Luna's behavior only got worse. It was as if I didn't even recognize her anymore. The sweet and considerate daughter I had raised was disappearing, and in her place was someone who seemed increasingly rebellious and distant. One day, she came home with Nancy and I was completely shocked to see that she had got a tattoo on her face. I couldn't believe my eyes. To be clear, I have no problem with tattoos in general, but a facial tattoo at 16? It was an impulsive decision that I would have strongly advised against if I had known earlier. When I asked Luna how this had happened, she told me casually that she had been thinking about getting a tattoo for a while. Nancy had encouraged her, had accompanied her to the tattoo parlor and had helped her decide to get it on her face. I was furious. Who in their right mind allows, or even worse, encourages a 16-year-old girl to get a tattoo on her face? I couldn't hide my anger and I admit that I raised my voice. I told her how irresponsible and careless the decision had been, not only because of her age, but also because of how permanent such a visible tattoo is. But Luna didn't care. She ignored my concerns as if they were exaggerated. Nancy also intervened and accused me of being controlling, saying that when she was 16, she had done worse things than get a tattoo. So I shouldn't make such a big deal out of this. I felt completely undermined as a father. Not only was Nancy interfering in how I raised my daughter, but now she was actively encouraging irresponsible decisions without even consulting me. I turned to Nancy, enraged, and told her she should be ashamed of herself. I reminded her that Luna was still a child and needed responsible guidance, not someone who encouraged her to make impulsive and bad decisions. But she didn't back down. She argued that she had done nothing wrong in supporting Luna and insisted that our daughter could do whatever she wanted with her life. After that argument, things only got worse. Luna became bolder and more defiant every day. She started to break all the boundaries she could. She got piercings without my permission, then dyed her hair in very bright colors. And soon after, she started wearing clothes that were very inappropriate for school, clothes that not only went against school rules, but also attracted negative attention. On top of that, she started hanging out with bad influences at school. Kids who were often absent from class and had a reputation for being troublemakers. Her grades started to drop dramatically. Luna, who had always been a bright and capable student, was now failing one of her subjects. I felt like I was watching my daughter go downhill. I didn't know how to stop it. I tried everything I could think of. I sat her down to have many heart-to-heart conversations, trying to understand what was going on in her mind and why she was acting the way she was. I encouraged her to talk to a school counselor, hoping that someone else could reach her in a way that I couldn't. I even asked my parents to try talking to her, thinking she might open up to them if she felt I was too intense, but nothing worked. Luna was not willing to listen to me or anyone else. All the while, Nancy continued to fan the flames and encourage Luna's rebelliousness, undermining every effort I made to help her. I felt like I was losing my daughter, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't connect with her. This year, when Luna turned 17, I organized her birthday party, as I always did. It was a tradition that I valued, a way to celebrate her and bring the family together. However, this year's celebration turned into a painful and embarrassing moment that left me speechless. Luna had insisted that Nancy be invited. As she wanted her birth mother to attend, despite my misgivings, I agreed, wanting to avoid further trouble and hoping to keep the peace for the sake of the occasion. What I hadn't expected was Luna's shocking choice of appearance and behavior during the party. She entered the gathering wearing a see-through fishnet dress with a brightly colored bikini underneath. She had cut her long hair and now had a very short cut. On top of this, she had a new tattoo on her foot, one that was large, elaborate and very visible through her fishnet clothing. The whole ensemble combined with her piercings and facial tattoo was shocking to everyone present. As expected, many of my relatives were left speechless. To give context, most of them hadn't seen Luna in quite some time, so her drastic change was unsettling. It wasn't just her physical appearance. It was the clothes she had chosen for the occasion. The mesh dress was too revealing for a family gathering and left very little to the imagination. Some of my relatives, especially the older ones, were visibly scandalized. And to make matters worse, Luna didn't seem to care about the discomfort she was causing. She walked with confidence, ignoring the murmurs and sideways glances. I wanted to talk to my daughter, but it was her birthday. I didn't want to ruin her day, so I let it go. During the party, Nancy kept trying to get Luna to have a glass of wine, which annoyed me enormously. When I noticed this, I calmly but firmly told Nancy to stop encouraging our underage daughter to drink. Instead of stopping, Nancy responded by shouting that she was a mother too, that she knew what she was doing and that I shouldn't get involved in her parenting decisions. Luna, siding with Nancy, told me to relax and casually mentioned that she had drunk alcohol before. Surprised, I immediately asked Luna when this had happened. And that's when she told me, as calmly as if nothing had happened, that Nancy had taken her to a bar before, during one of their outings, and that she had gotten quite drunk after her fourth or fifth glass of whiskey. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my daughter's lips. My blood was boiling, and all my attempts to remain calm vanished. I lost control and confronted Nancy in front of everyone at the party. I shouted at her that she had no right to expose my underage daughter to such irresponsible behavior, and that she was setting an incredibly dangerous example. In my anger, I told Nancy that what she was doing was illegal, and that I could call Child Protective Services or the police and have her arrested for endangering a minor. To my horror, Luna jumped to Nancy's defense, insisting that I shouldn't blame her mother because it had been her idea all along. She said that she had asked Nancy to take her to the bar because she wanted to try alcohol and argued that Nancy had simply agreed. Nancy defended herself by accusing me of exaggerating and being too possessive of Luna. Her words hurt me, especially when she told me that if I continued to act this way, Luna would eventually turn away from me because, according to her, nobody likes a controlling parent. I stood my ground and told Nancy that protecting Luna from underage drinking was not being overprotective. It was literally my duty as a parent and I was in accordance with the law. But before I could say more, Luna exploded with rage. She screamed that she was fed up with me always treating her like a child. She threatened that she wouldn't let me attack her mother, and that if I went ahead and reported her mother to Child Protective Services, she would testify against me. She even went so far as to say that she would make up false stories about me abusing her just to get me into trouble. I was frozen. My mouth opened and for a moment I couldn't process what she was saying. My own daughter, my Luna, was threatening to ruin me. The daughter I had raised with all the love and dedication I had to give. The one I had sacrificed so much for was now there, threatening to lie and destroy my reputation. Luna went on, her voice defiant, saying that this was exactly why she preferred to be with Nancy rather than me. According to her, Nancy was a fun mother, she let her do what she wanted and didn't try to control her life like I supposedly did. Luna called me a terrible father for always getting in the way of her happiness and said she wished she could live with Nancy instead of me. Those words cut me like a knife. I stood there in the middle of the party surrounded by family, feeling as if the ground had been pulled out from under my feet. My parents and relatives tried to defend me, but no matter what they said, Luna showed no remorse on her face. After this incident, I honestly felt that something inside me broke. Luna's public humiliation of me, calling me a terrible father and threatening to lie about me, destroyed the bond we had. The worst part was that she never apologized for what she did. I finally realized that if she no longer wanted to live with me, maybe it was time to give her the space she seemed to want so much. I arranged a meeting with Luna and Nancy after her birthday party and told them that Luna had my permission to move in with Nancy, just as she wanted. I explained that until Luna turned 18, I would continue to support her financially by sending her money for her expenses every month. But beyond that, she would no longer be part of their lives as she had been. They both seemed surprised, but in the end they were happy with my decision. So Luna moved out and started living with Nancy. Over time, she would call me from time to time, but our conversations were always short. It still hurt, and every time we spoke it was a reminder of what we had lost. Then today, without warning, I received a message from Luna saying that she regrets moving in with her mother. I was speechless. I immediately asked her to explain what she meant, but she didn't give me much information. Now I'm in a difficult situation. I want to understand what's going on in her head. Maybe Luna has finally started to realize the consequences of her decisions. But at the same time, I don't want to push her away again. I don't want to be the reason she turns against me again. So I ask, am I the bad guy for letting my daughter go and live with her irresponsible mother? Update 1. I understand that many people think that I should never have allowed Luna to move out, no matter what happened. But please try to understand that being a single parent is not easy, especially when you feel that you are constantly being undermined and manipulated. Nancy is a liar and a manipulator. She filled my daughter's head with lies and turned her against me. Besides, the truth is that the more you pressure a teenager, the more they rebel. If I hadn't let Luna go with Nancy, She would have found other ways to show her anger at me, and I wasn't ready for that kind of conflict. In my heart, I just wanted Luna to see the truth for herself. I didn't want to be the one always telling her what was right and wrong. I wanted her to come to that conclusion on her own. I wanted her to see Nancy as I saw her and understand exactly why I had worked so hard to protect her from her birth mother. Update 2. Today, Luna showed up at my house. She didn't look like herself. She was pale. She seemed very upset. I immediately invited her in and gave her a glass of water to calm down. After she took a moment to compose herself, she told me something I wasn't expecting. She couldn't live with her mother anymore and wanted to come back and live with me. I could see how distressed she was, so I asked her to tell me exactly what had been going on. That's when Luna opened up and told me everything. It turns out that after moving in with Nancy, she started to see her for what she really was. Living with her every day was completely different from the few hours she had spent with her mother before. Nancy drank all day long. By the time she reached her 6th or 7th glass of whiskey, she became a nasty drunk. Luna felt that she always had to take care of her mother, cooking, cleaning and doing everything around the house. At first, Luna thought it was something she could do to help. But over time, it became a daily obligation. Nancy would get angry and demand that Luna do things for her, and Luna began to feel more like a burden than something she wanted to do. To make matters worse, Nancy was using the money I sent for Luna's expenses on herself. She bought clothes, makeup, and other things while refusing to give Luna money when she needed it. Nancy also never encouraged her to focus on her homework or finish her schoolwork. Luna was afraid she was going to fail high school, but Nancy never cared or supported her. Nancy also brought a different man home every night, and Luna began to feel insecure. She no longer felt comfortable or safe in her own home, and it all became too much for her. I asked Luna why she hadn't told me all this before, and that if I had known, I might have been able to help her sooner. She looked down for a moment, clearly annoyed with herself, and then told me that she knew how much her words had hurt me during her birthday party, and she didn't want to admit that she had been wrong. Luna said she had been stupid to believe Nancy and turn her back on me all those months ago. She sincerely apologized and begged me to let her come back and live with me. Hearing her apologize and acknowledge her mistakes was a relief. I could see how much she regretted her decisions. I gave her a hug and assured her that this was her home. If she didn't feel comfortable living with Nancy, she could always come back to me. I told her she had said enough and asked her to try to fix things. Luna seemed so relieved to hear that, and for the first time in a long time, I saw peace in her eyes. After she left, I contacted Nancy, planning to meet with her in a few days to talk things over. I'm not sure what will come of the conversation, but I want to protect my daughter. Now more than ever I need to make sure she is in a safe and healthy place. Update 3. It's been a while since my last update, as I've been really busy with everything. Luna has moved back in with me, and although I'm relieved to have her here, the situation with Nancy was not at all easy. Nancy fought with all her might to prevent Luna from returning to me. She accused me of somehow turning her against her, trying to make it seem like I was the one manipulating the situation, but I made it clear to Nancy that this was Luna's decision, not mine. Luna herself repeated the reasons she had told me about how uncomfortable she felt living with Nancy. Nancy tried to threaten Luna, saying that if she moved out, she would stop talking to her forever. It was very hard to see Nancy use that kind of threat, but I defended Luna and told Nancy that she was just a child, that she had every right to change her mind without being threatened. I made it clear that Luna's well-being and happiness were the most important thing, and that she was not going to be pressured to stay in a place where she did not feel safe or cared for. In the end, Nancy left, and since then, she hasn't contacted Luna at all. I don't know what will happen in the future with their relationship. Luna seems sorry for everything that has happened, and I can see how much she has been thinking about her decisions. She has promised me that she will try to do better, and I believe her. I've also convinced her to start going to therapy, and she's agreed, which is a big step. I think talking to someone will help her process everything she's been through. I'm also going to talk to her teacher to see how we can improve her grades and get her back on track. I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to support her. I'm just grateful to have my daughter back home at last.